going to have to get really comfortable failing in the middle of the weight room with all these guys around and either be audacious enough to ask for a spot from
Yep.
some gym bro
Yep.
or dump the weight and make a loud sound and go, well, failed that and move on. And so I always tell people like the key lesson in weight training for me was you have to get really, really comfortable failing and then have the nerve to show up and try again the next day and be comfortable failing again. I spent an entire year failing constantly.
You are listening to Humanity Unlocked. I am your host, Kimberly Daya, and I'm so excited for today. Before I launch into this intro, I have to tell you it's going to be a long one because I really need to set the tone for this episode because it's not sort of our usual brand of episode, but there is an angle to it that I'm excited to exploit today with my guest, who is a friend of mine. Her name is Jessica. Again, just bear with me because it's very, very important that we set the tone for this episode so you guys know what to expect. Jessica and I actually met 12 years ago this month. I will never forget it. It was April 2012, and we were 2 of the 5 women asked to participate in a cover shoot. Title of that feature was called The Real Housewives of Sacramento. We all added each other on Facebook the day of the photo shoot, and Jessica and I have been friends ever since. I just cannot introduce her without sharing our backstory because it is so good. When most of us think of issues that are stigmatized, weight loss doesn't generally come to mind. Ambition doesn't really either. But the truth is, deciding to pursue a career calling and getting into the best shape of your life puts you in a staggering minority of individuals who have chosen something better for themselves and are actually ramping up at an age when most of us are slowing down and, dare I say, letting ourselves go. This is not an inspirational or motivational podcast or episode. I think I've made that pretty clear in earlier episodes from season 1. This isn't the place to come to get repackaged and repurposed motivational tips. That is not my brand. If you walk away with that, then great, but that's not my purpose. Because just candidly, there are probably tens of thousands of other podcasts who will give that to you. This show is about challenging ourselves to see the human behind an issue, a human and a situation that we may otherwise be judgmental of. The fact is, when we choose to better ourselves and our circumstances, and we share it on social media, especially later in life, there will always be naysayers. The who does she think she is crowd, who will watch from a distance, will roll their eyes and judge someone for daring to step outside the box and change their life. Those people exist. They are alive and well, but they are not thriving, and it upsets them when you are. And it is the reason I believe more people, women in particular, are too scared to take a leap or make a change because what will so-and-so say about me? Jessica's story is similar but different. In the span of 5 years, she has managed to lose 35 pounds and transform her entire physique through weight training. She has gone back to school to finish her degree in health science, followed by her choice to go to nursing school. As a nursing school student, Jessica is a 43-year-old wife and mother of 3 with twin 16-year-old daughters and an 8-year-old son. While she didn't necessarily experience the kind of judgment, criticism, and gossiping that I know so many others have contended with, she is the poster child for someone who has gone against the grain and is someone who so many of us from a distance may find ourselves jealously judging for improving her life so drastically and sharing it in such a public way on social media. If you're the type of person who finds yourself side-eyeing the girl who is daring to change her life and who is bravely sharing it for others to see, this episode is for you. Stories like Jessica's tend to rub critics the wrong way because the fact is there are a lot of people who don't want to see others do well. The pain of change is hard. Changing your life trajectory is not for the faint of heart. There are always going to be extenuating circumstances like kids, jobs, money, health, logistics, all things that make change feel so much more difficult than it should be. None of us are immune from the grind that it takes to make change. Today, we are talking about the behind-the-scenes aspect that caused someone like Jessica, a stay-at-home mom with a beautiful life, a woman who was and is already happily married and who is financially stable, to willingly go against the grain at 40 to try something new. Welcome to the show, my friend Jessica, and thank you so much for being here. I think that's the longest intro I have ever written. And the reason I write it out like that is because it really saves me time on the back end to edit out all my uhs and ums and my long pauses because my brain doesn't think as fast as it should. Sure. So prior to your 38th birthday, because I know that was a defining time for you, previous to that, it was discovered that you had a benign heart arrhythmia, or I guess the medical term is PVC. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yep.
Okay. And your cardiologist prescribed a medication. What do you remember about your life or your quality of life back then?
Yeah. So I was postpartum, right? And I never fully lost all of the baby weight. And then here comes this heart arrhythmia. And the cardiologist puts me on this medication just to kind of help me feel better. It was benign. It wasn't an arrhythmia that was going to kill me. Medication was just to help me not feel that flutter. And it didn't really work. And instead, it made me tired and it made me kind of like fall asleep every day. And then I could see this cycle starting of the energy that I didn't have from postpartum is now really depleted. And so I could just see this trend of downward spiraling health wise. And I could see the weight gain creeping up, whether it was water weight or from inactivity or from fatigue from the medication, whatever it was. And I thought, this is a train. This is where it's going to get on this cycle and we're on the track and I'm going to gain weight and then another health issue is going to come up and then I'm going to get another medication for that. And I think it was my birthday fell on Easter, my 38th birthday, and we were camping at the coast. And I remember going, I hate feeling like this. And I can't do what I want to do. And I'm just tired and I'm don't like uncomfortable in my body and uncomfortable in my clothes. And my son was 3 and I hadn't really gone back to the gym yet. And I thought, I need a hobby and I need to get off of this because this is going to be a trend.
So you felt worse on the medication than you did off it?
To me, yeah, the flutter and it was kind of annoying, but not detrimental.
Right.
Where the medication was causing me detrimental.
It was impacting your life,
Yeah.
your quality
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
got home, I emailed my doctor. I said, do I have to be on this? Like, I don't like this. And he said, no, we'll taper you off of it. You can get off of it.
So what I would think that a lot of times would happen is somebody would be on that medication. They would say, I'm struggling now with fatigue and weight gain or whatever. Okay, well, let me give you another medication for
Yep.
that.
To cover it.
And
Yep.
then, and is
And
that
then
what you're
it's a
talking about?
cycle.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Or, I'm thinking my brain is going, I'm going to get heavy and then I'm going to get diabetic and then I'm going to have other issues. So
yeah.
I could just see it's going to go one of two ways. I'm either going to end up on 6 different medications or I'm going to end up with worse health conditions than just this benign arrhythmia.
Oh my goodness.
So I just kind of, that was a defining choice for me. Enough. I don't want to ride this train. I want to be done with it and flip the switch. We need to flip the switch.
You caught it really, really early because I feel like it is so common to go the connecting from one to the next to the next. I mean, that's everybody's story.
For sure.
I mean, I know so many people that have had a story like that. You described yourself back then, and I wrote it down. I wrote it down during the pre-interview. Frumpy, dumpy, and grumpy.
Yes.
You said you were bored with the day-to-day. You'd gained weight. You had to have hernia surgery. And tell me about what happened. You don't have to give me specifics.
It's okay.
I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I had twins, and then I had a pretty big baby later. I was 34. And I had a really big diastasis, a big hernia from like my sternum all the way to my C-section, and my belly just never would close back up. And I had this huge hernia. And I remember my son was an infant and someone rubbed my belly and said, oh, are you having another one already? And I was like, there you go. That's where we're at. That's how I felt. And that was sort of like, cool, thanks.
What?
And admittedly, that can happen. I get it, especially when it's just a belly and it happens. And I have grace for people. It is what it is. But it was a moment for me to go, that doesn't make me happy. How can I change it?
Well, also, too, you were talking about how when you would, and we're talking about 2019, around that 30th birthday time frame, your son, well, I guess, let's see. At that time, he was how old? He was 3?
2.5.
Oh, 2.5. So it would have been maybe around that time or prior to when you would sort of try to go to the gym or try to make these changes. He didn't do well at the gym day.
Yeah.
And so you cry. And so then your workout will get interrupted. So it's like, what's the point of even trying to go?
Yes.
Because so it's like you felt sabotaged it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And probably, I had some postpartum anxiety and I felt like I'm going to put him in the gym daycare. He's never been away from me. He's going to scream the whole time and they're going to come get me. And what's the point? And so maybe it was self-sabotaging. Maybe it was just the circumstances of the time. But I remember when he started preschool, I thought, okay, he's going to be there. I have no other option.
Right.
Like there's no excuse. I can
Mhm.
go. I can do it.
Well, sometimes I feel like too, we look when we're not ready to make a change. I had
Mm,
just did an episode on anxiety with Katera. When we're not ready to make a change, we actually will look for the reason to blame it on why we're not doing that
for
thing.
sure.
And I've been
100%.
guilty that most people know what that's like. So, but at the same time, you're a little bit warranted in that way. I mean, sometimes you feel, okay, the medication's not working out, that's sabotaging me. The baby cries, that's sabotaging me. Like these things are real things, but
Hmm.
we're not sufficiently motivated to go, okay, well, so if those things exist, yes, what else can I do?
Yep. And the
Yeah,
sufficiently motivated, I think, is key because when you really want it, you'll find a way.
right.
And I think that's
100%.
that's what had to happen. I had to get to that point where I wanted it enough to make a way.
You did talk about how you did need an outlet of some kind because you had not been prioritizing anything beyond being a mom, wife, taking care of the household, cooking. Prior to Gage, your youngest being born, you worked as a full-time photographer. Previous to that, you worked in healthcare. So it sounds like this was like the first time in a while you didn't have something for just you to enjoy or
Hmm.
a way to invest in yourself. So then your 38th birthday rolls around, which is almost exactly 5 years ago, April 2019, and then something changed. So initially, it was horseback riding.
Yeah.
Was that prior to the aha moment? So had you already started going that I'm not happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was prior to the gym stuff, but it was very much me going, I need an outlet and I
Mhm.
need an outlet that will help me unplug. You can't have someone contacting you on a horse, right?
No.
I wanted to not worry about makeup. I wanted to be outdoors. I wanted to be connected to something other than myself, but not connected to my phone. It was the first time since my son had been born that I could just go, my phone's in the truck, my phone's in the car, and someone else can handle it and he'll be okay.
Yep.
And just that little bit of letting go of that and going, I just have an hour to ride this horse and only worry about my energy that I'm giving the horse and the energy that they give back to me and to just disconnect and do something else.
Yeah.
And then I think that motivation just kind of snowballed into the next thing.
Yeah.
It was just the baby step for
Mhm.
me that
Mhm.
just allowed me to go, oh, so someone else can take care of my son. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
You
And there's a
know?
lesson in that. Like sometimes you don't overhaul your life in one foul swoop. It is a million little steps
Yeah.
going in the right direction. And it's not, I mean, I can't, have I ever seen somebody on a horse holding a phone? I don't know. I mean, so you can do a lot of things with a phone in your hand, but riding a horse, it's like, why bother?
Well, when you're really good, you can. But I
Yeah.
wasn't really good.
But I can't see somebody riding a horse for peace and going, let me just text and email,
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. So you emailed your cardiologist, you got off the medication. And when you first decided to start a workout regimen, you started with Zumba twice a week. You said you knew you needed to start slow because you were somewhat susceptible to overdoing it, and you knew you were someone who'd be at risk of like quote unquote a crash and burn situation. Did you said you put some goals in place to keep yourself on track? What was the main goal you had? Was it weight loss? Like what was your progress
Yeah,
like?
no, it was weight loss to begin with. It was yeah. I just wanted to lose 20 pounds. That
Mhm.
was my goal. But then I also within that goal had to say, but what's realistic for me? Right?
Mhm.
And my son was in preschool, I think 2 to 3 mornings a week. And I thought, okay, I want to go back to Zumba and I want to just go 2 times a week and not be so sore that I can't come the next
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, I'm going to do this crash diet and I'm going to do this. I did do a little round of Whole 30. I didn't even finish 30 days. I did Whole 21.
Mhm.
But it just brought my mind to an awareness point and it kind of just aligned. And as the goal would sort of change, right? Like it was just very small,
Right.
very small. And then it was okay. That was April. By January 1, I want to hit 5 days in a week, whatever workouts it is, classes or whatever. I just want to be 5 days a week and be able to go all five and not be so sore that I'm miserable.
Right.
And I remember it was January 1, I hit the fifth day. Like
Yeah.
it was right there. And I was like, this is the week I'm doing it. And
And were you at the point that when you weren't feeling sore all the time? Had you worked
Yeah.
yourself to that?
I'd have a mild soreness, but not like those, you hear people, I can't walk after a leg
Yeah.
day. I didn't want to get to that because I knew I wouldn't go back the next
I
day.
was just literally just going to ask that because then we self-sabotage. Oh, I'm too sore. My husband does it. Not he's better now. He started working out way years after I started, and he would go, "Oh, I'm too sore." And I'm like, "No, you're not." We will tell ourselves we can't,
Yes.
but sometimes you actually need the workout. Maybe not going
Well,
crazy,
and
but
human instinct is to say, oh, your body and your
needs a
mind
rest.
will
Yeah,
say, you can't do this. You need to let me rest. But really,
yeah.
it's sabotaging yourself. You have to get over your mind.
And you have
Yeah.
to decide: is this your mind telling you this, or is this your body telling you this?
For
So
sure.
yeah. Okay, so did you have any issues with staying on track, or did you have accountability methods in place? Did you have people that you were working with, or what was your main accountability like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So my husband's an athlete, has been his whole life, and I wouldn't work out with him because
Which I find so interesting, by the
which
way.
is funny because now that's like our
Mhm.
date day is we
Yeah.
go to the gym together. But back then I was so afraid of don't judge me, don't look at me, you've been an athlete your whole life and I haven't, and I'm just learning,
Uh-huh.
or I just didn't want the all eyes on me at the gym, and I didn't want the he would never, but my perception of critique, right?
Mhm.
My form isn't right, or my strength isn't very good, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, so I made some friends in Zumba, some girl Zumba buddies, and we would all go together and have a blast. And then it was like, oh, have you tried this workout or tried that workout? And then we would do that together. And those friendships sort of helped you on
Yeah.
track, right? Um, I had to, my personality must be where I have to build a certain level of confidence before I can take that confidence to the next
Mhm.
thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting with Brett. Uh, as long as I've known him, he's been always in shape, right? He's always been,
Yeah.
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 I feel like, did he ever try to talk you into like, come work out with me, I'll help you? No,
Never.
never.
Never once. And even like some of my before and after pictures are pretty dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I don't ever remember you looking like that.
Mark says that to me too.
I
Yeah,
don't ever remember you being
yeah,
heavy like
yeah.
that. Or I think that's just a bad angle. Or I'm like, you're very gracious. However, he was never like, you shouldn't eat that. Or do you want to do this diet with me? Or come work out with me? Never once.
Do you think his example, with the way he lived his life, did that ever play into your decision to change anything?
Mm-mm.
No, no,
No,
nothing
it's
to do with him.
interesting. He just doesn't put that out there. I think he has expectations for himself and
Mm-hmm.
his own goals, and
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't ever expect anyone else to live up to those.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That's
it's kind of
awesome.
a no pressure
Yeah.
situation. But then the flip side is I'm like that too, where I set
Mm-hmm.
these really wild expectations for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll sometimes go, is that realistic expectation for yourself?
Yeah. You seem a little bit like an extremist, though. Like once you
Yeah,
have your mind made up, you're going to go all in.
for
So the
sure.
accountability factor, what most people would find so necessary, where they have like myself, I hired a trainer, still have her. Like you are like you've latched on to the goal, you've committed to it, you're invested in it, and now there's no turning back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of your personality that way. How long did it take you to reach your goal rate or that weight loss goal? And what was the thought process after you got there?
Yeah. So I think probably by the fall, I had reached the 20-pound weight loss. So I started in April. By the fall, I had lost 20 pounds.
That's
And
good.
I remember going, oh, well, what now?
Mm-hmm.
You lost the 20 pounds. Good job. But do you go back now? Do you just start eating what you used to eat? Like, what do you do now? So that's, I think, was the biggest head thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the mental game has to get strong because you go, okay, now I have to set a new goal.
Yeah.
I can't undo what I've done. I can't go back. I enjoy it. And that's the thing a lot of people don't really understand, I guess, about the gym and fitness in general is falling in love with the process. And it is addictive.
Yeah.
You know, it is this endorphin. You miss your daily dose of endorphins when you take a rest day, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought, I have to change the goal. What's the next goal? Okay, so we've lost the weight, but is it the composition that I like? So
Mhm.
let's recomp. Let's change that. Let's
Yeah.
put on some muscle. And then COVID sort of happened later on, and
Yeah.
that changed everything.
Yeah, and you actually went really deep on, like, education. I remember telling you at the time, we were messaging back and forth, and I was just like, "You're really deep in this. You should be a trainer." And you said, "No, I'm not making another one of my hobbies a job," because that's what you had done with photography.
Yep. I'm
But
afraid it would ruin the joy.
yeah, well, understandably so,
Yeah.
when something becomes a job, but you got certifications and you really educated yourself on how this all works because it is a science.
Yeah.
To not, I mean, losing weight's obviously a science, but so is recomp, which basically means you're trying to put on muscle without and build your physique without also putting on too much fat.
Or
There's a science.
simultaneously
It's
losing
very,
fat, which is very hard.
very, very hard. Easier in the beginning because you have
Yep,
those
it's
newbie
newbie
gains.
gains.
Yeah. Yeah, but then after that, 6 months to a year, it's like, good freaking luck.
Yeah, it's really
It's
hard.
really
And I
hard.
think I'm an information junkie, right?
Same.
So if something's interesting to me or I'm into something, I'm all in. And
Mhm.
I'm going to read journal articles and I'm going to dive in and I'm going to follow the experts and I'm going to download their book and that's, I think, when that confidence sort of came is when I would start working out with my husband. And I'm like, actually, you're not doing that right now, honey. You know, it kind of flipped a little bit.
Yeah.
And he would probably say too that like my thirst for knowledge has actually improved him now
Oh, good.
because
That's cool.
he's like, I've always trained the way I was trained in high school and the way I was trained as a college athlete and the way I've trained with whatever. But you've actually changed things for me by showing me different experts or different things that we weren't taught
Mhm.
back in his day, you know? And
Yeah.
so I think there's that
That's really
give and
cool.
take a little bit
Yeah.
where it's interesting.
Yeah. And then you also said that you started prioritizing strength over aesthetic.
When COVID shut down the gyms, I couldn't do all my Zumbas and cardios and stuff. And so I had to rely on strength training first at home and then in gyms that would open up. And the classes just weren't an option for me anymore. And the
Right.
more I dove into weightlifting, first it was aesthetics, lean, but
Mhm.
putting on muscle. It's hard to put on muscle unless you lift heavy.
Mhm.
And then this influencer that I follow and trainer and big shot guy put together a sport during COVID called strong lifting.
Mhm.
And it was really geared for his bikini women. And I dove headfirst and got certified. And I was like, I like this. And it builds confidence while also building your strength, right?
Yeah.
And your muscle. And I think that confidence building is the key component, right?
Mhm.
Just like not, I wouldn't work out with my husband. I wasn't confident. And then you get a little bit of confidence and you'll do something you maybe wouldn't have done before.
Right.
And I think probably the bigger picture on all of this is just layering on the confidence that
Mhm.
allows that momentum to go into the next thing for you, right?
Were you
So like,
surprised by that?
yeah,
Like,
100%.
look at me go kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember admiring other girls that worked out that I thought, oh, they're so buff or they're so much stronger than me. And then who am I to be posting this workout? But people would ask me. And so I finally just was like, I'm going to post it. And then
Mhm.
I would think, oh, I'm not at her level. I shouldn't post this. But people would ask. So I
Yeah.
share. And yeah, it's just interesting the way that layering on
Mhm.
of confidence in small increments just
Yeah.
kind of rolls into
Yeah.
the next thing.
You sent me something that I wanted to talk a little bit about here too, um, in terms of criticism, because like what I said at the top of the show, where we can be judged for trying to do better.
Hmm.
And a lot of times that judgment does come from ourselves.
For sure.
And whether or not that's because we've perceived it from the world around us, seen other, like maybe I have a friend who I heard her judging somebody. So I know if I do it, then she's probably going to judge me or whatever. And it's like we talked about before we started rolling about the mom thing, like moms judge other moms all the time. And so then we judge ourselves because we see them judge. So it's like this thing that we do to ourselves and we torture ourselves over it. And one of the things that you sent me was who do I think I am posting this workout, or am I insane for going back to school? Um, and it's like you said, it's as a way to deflect and also subtly address, like, yes, I know I'm old to be doing this or lifting this weight or starting over. Um, so talk to me a little bit about that. So what was that like for you? Was that something you dealt heavily with, or?
I think, in reflecting on like your mission, right? In talking to people who maybe have been judged or criticized or had assumptions made about them, I thought, okay, well, maybe no one outwardly judged me for posting my workouts or posting bikini pictures during my progress, which is not comfortable to do in your 40s,
Yeah,
right? And I thought, okay, well, nobody's outwardly judging me, but who was my biggest critic? It was myself, right?
I have a question for you. I didn't think about it until just now. Okay, so since I've known you, I think our girls are the same age. They're both sophomores, um, 16, and you've always posted. You're obviously a photographer. You've always posted a lot about your family. You've posted pictures of the girls, and then when Gage came around, you posted a lot of baby pictures back with Gage, and you posted a lot with you and Brett. And did you notice a difference in we're talking just about social media and the difference in the engagement that you would get on social media from posting things like that versus when you started posting things that more had to do with your own achievements? Was there a difference?
I think at first there was a general curiosity. What is she doing? How's she losing that weight? I would get messages, "Hey, can I come work out with you?" Or what's your diet? And then it sort of waned off. And so there was a handful of people who were genuinely curious about what I was doing. But in general, on social media, people weren't engaging with my transformations or my workouts or my PR posts as much. So I actually created a totally separate Instagram account because I don't want my children on public social media. And I didn't want to open my Instagram up publicly
Right.
for that. And so that's where I see the engagement. And then
Okay.
I just sort of compartmentalized
Mm-hmm.
aspects of my life. I kept my family, and I kept it private. And the people who want that can get that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can engage and we can have a relationship. And then the people who are genuinely curious or motivated or want information or want to see what I ate today. I mean, it's
Yeah.
boring. It's boring, but
Yeah.
here it is.
I
I think I
yeah.
just had to compartmentalize it a little bit and go, if you're here for it, you are. And if you're not, you're not. And it's
That's true.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
It's a good way to think about it because I think I got in my own head. People love the posts about my family. They love anytime I'm talking about the kids. Anytime I'm talking about something for myself, whether it was my fitness or the podcast, there's just not people don't care.
It
And
got to
and it goes like,
crickets.
well, it's kind of like, okay, are they judging me? Do they? And I'm not a person who's going to stop doing what I'm doing because I don't get the likes. I'm not
Same.
that, but it's noticeable. I mean, it's eerily silent in comparison to, like, if I post something about Jordan or Jasmine or Mark or me and Mark or a vacation, I mean, sometimes triple digits in the likes, and then post something about the podcast or fitness and it's like my two same people liking it, you know? So it's
Totally.
just, for me, it was more like, huh,
But I think in compartmentalizing my social media, I always say like attracts like. The
yeah.
people that are genuinely interested in fitness will be on that page.
Do they have to be though? Do they have to be interested in fitness in order to
That's who's there.
acknowledge, like, look at you, good job?
I think at first people are supportive, and then when you surpass the average,
Hmm.
and right now I'm average. I've been busy in school. Like I can tell you, this is not my most fit self. But when you surpass the average,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. When you're
it,
going
it
above and beyond.
then you start to lose some people.
Yeah.
And when you think about maybe the top 5 or 1% of people will eat the same way every day. When you're in that top 1 to 5% of people who eat the same thing every day and you're willing to do that and you're willing to pack your food and do those things, you don't really connect to the average person who just wants to lose 10 pounds anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you set strength goals, right? And they don't care what their bench press is. They just want to go to the gym and look toned, right?
Hmm.
Then you've sort of put yourself in a different category where you maybe aren't inclusive
Yeah.
and they don't really relate to it. I think it's relatability. I don't think it's
Is it?
hate. Maybe it's not hate. Maybe
No, I don't
some
think it's
is.
hate. I don't think it's hate. I don't, for me, I don't need to relate with something in order to enjoy it for you.
For sure. I'm
And
the same way.
at first I thought to myself, well, I'm not a person that's on Facebook very often. I'm a much more of a YouTube girl these days. No surprise. But I'm much more of a YouTube girl. So I'm not on Instagram doing a lot of scrolling. And at first I just thought, well, maybe they're just like me because I'm not on. But if I am on and I see you, I like it. And a lot of times I comment. So at first I thought that's probably what it is until I post a picture with my family. And then it's like, no, they're still on. They're just choosing not to
they're
engage.
Choosing. Yeah.
And the question for me was always why? Like, what do
That
I
is
have to
interesting.
relate in order to enjoy it for you? I don't. I
Yeah.
don't need to like it. So that's where like this episode for me becomes a thing because it's like, are people genuinely happy when you're doing well? Like not you, all of us.
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
that is an interesting point
Yeah.
because I think that's also, I mean, that's part personality. I think
Yeah.
confident people are happy to be happy for others.
Yeah.
They're more than eager. People who maybe have their own internal struggle aren't.
It wouldn't even be something that it would occur to me, but because it's such a contrast from my personal life versus my professional life or my fitness life, because there's such a deep contrast, that's what got my attention was like, oh, so they love this, but they do not like this. Like why? That is where the thought started.
Do you think that people, and maybe this is part of it, do you think people have a hard time seeing a woman, particularly women our age, celebrate themselves?
Well, that's the reason for the podcast, because
Right?
I think that when you're 20, everybody is like, if when you're 20 and you're killing it out there, people celebrate you. They're not withholding their kudos. But when you're 40, it's like she's, like you said in the pre-interview, she's ramping up and we're slowing down. Some people will feel threatened by that. I guess I'm somebody who was in a slowed down, very complacent, sedentary state for 10 years. And it never made me think any way about somebody who was doing well. In fact, it made me want to brag about them. I have some very good friends who are super successful, and I bragged about them every chance I got. Oh, my friend is the CEO of this, and she runs this, and da-da-da-da, and I have a friend that does, and I am the person that does that.
Yeah.
So I don't relate. It's just not a thing for me. But I'm also not a competitive person, like, not at all. In fact, I wish I were a little more.
I think that was me. In the gym arena when it first started, I was like, I'm not competitive that way though.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the personality trait of when people see women of a certain age that are ramping up and that are finding successes when you shouldn't be finding successes anymore. Or maybe though it's the competitive personalities just don't like seeing that.
Right.
But our personality is not that, so it doesn't offend us.
No, even though I don't. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Okay, sorry, I know I went on a huge tangent
we
there,
did.
but I did want to address that. Okay. But this kind of goes with that what we were just talking about. You did mention you're used to being naturally good at things. So weight training taught you that in order to learn and improve, in this case to get stronger, that you would need to get comfortable with learning how to fail. What did you mean by that?
Oh. Well, I mean, so my husband's always been successful. High school, college, sports, everything. So I wouldn't work out with him because he succeeds at anything he does. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to fail. I'm not good at this. I don't want anyone to see me fail. I really don't want my husband to see me fail because he thinks I'm amazing. I don't want to ruin that. He wouldn't care. He doesn't care.
Right.
But I cared, right?
Yes, I totally get that.
And, I was in the GATE program in school. Not that that's anything special, but like things came easy to me, right?
You're a fabulous cook.
I didn't have to study a whole lot. I didn't get imagine how great my grades would have been if I actually had studied. I didn't get the greatest grades because I didn't really have to try.
Yeah. No, you are, when I think about it, you are good at everything you do. Like, really.
I throw myself in.
Yeah.
Like, if it's that thirst for information. And my son is the same way. They always say, oh, he's an enthusiastic learner. He wants to know. He wants to soak it all up. And I think he got a double dose of that from me and his dad. But I did not want to go to the gym and fail.
Yeah.
I didn't want my husband to see me wobble or drop weight or have poor form when weightlifting. And when I went into the strong lifting program and I did all of the training and I had to learn how to be a judge and judge lifts based on hitting certain metrics, and I was like, okay, I'm not really pushing myself to failure. That's what failure looks like. I'm going to have to get really comfortable failing in the middle of the weight room with all these guys around and either be audacious enough to ask for a spot from
Yep.
some gym bro
Yep.
or dump the weight and make a loud sound and go, well, failed that and move on. And so I always tell people like the key lesson in weight training for me was you have to get really, really comfortable failing and then have the nerve to show up and try again the next day and be comfortable failing again. I spent an entire year failing constantly. And I actually have made a montage like on my Instagram of, oh, look at this fail, look at this fail. And it was just boom, 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 one after the
I'm
other.
gonna share that when this episode comes out. I'll share that montage.
I've got some good montage,
Yeah.
just fail after fail after fail. And you have to there's a lot of women I see that won't really push themselves because of that fear of failure or the
Right.
fear of the eyes on them.
But
in the
don't you
gym.
think I'm gonna go on a limb and say that the respect you probably got from the fellow gym bros because you would fail and then show up and do it again and again, and they saw you progressively getting
Yep.
better, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because
I
that's
became one
strength.
of the guys.
Yes.
I was one of the guys. And pretty soon I'd have a guy ask me to spot him and he's benching 315. And I'm like, buddy, I can't lift that off of you. Are you sure you are asking the
I
right
could stand here
girl?
for moral support.
Where I was like, I could maybe do this. but
That's so
but
funny.
you earn the respect and you find a camaraderie. Like we have a gym fam. Like we had a family of people like that are like, I see you and I see you grinding and you're trying and you're pushing. And if you're coachable and you're teachable and you find the right people in the gym, then they're going, let me help you tweak that and you're going to get it. I have montages of, I call her my gym wife. I have montages of her screaming at me, get it, and I just think that's support. She could smoke me on every lift. Like she's a world-renowned power lifter. And she cheers me on when I'm benching 90 pounds, right? Like,
because she has the confidence to do so.
because she has the confidence to do so. And I think that we've hit on that today, like with the people who like certain things and don't. It's when they're confident in something, maybe they are really confident in their family so they can like your posts about your family.
Yeah. Human nature and why we are the way we are, why we do what we do is always something that interests me. But from them, it's probably totally subconscious.
They're not doing
They
it
don't
on
even
purpose.
know they're doing
No,
it, and
they're
that's
not.
probably what it is. I guess it's just because I don't find myself being that way. So you know what the basis of all this is I am just not very competitive, and I'm not very like you're used to doing well and being the best. I'm used to losing and being the worst. Last picked in PE, like. That is my what's the word? That's my, help me out. There's a word for it. Anyway, fill in the blank. That's me. And that my whole life has been that. So I'm just, if I do well, it's like, oh, well, look at me. I got a TED Talk. Did you guys see my TED Talk? Like, how cool is that? It's like,
Yeah.
guys, I competed in a fitness show. And everybody's like, crickets. And I'm like, but I never do anything. So that's why it's confusing.
Yeah. To say I'm successful in a lot of things, I was not an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, you should come to CrossFit with me. And I'm like, that's where you lose me because I'm not competitive.
Yeah.
I refuse to be the last one rolling in running because running is not my thing. I am not going to row and be the last one rowing. I'm not. I won't go to those kinds of sports because I'm not competitive.
Yeah.
I'm so non-competitive that I will remove myself.
Yeah.
From,
it wouldn't work.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Even the strong lifting, everyone said, oh, are you going to compete? No, I'm not going to compete.
Yeah.
I just wanted the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I wanted the training program that comes with it so I could write my own programs or help out a friend who wants me to write her a program, you know? I just wanted the knowledge. And I think that's, I think that non-competitive personality is where the lack of judgment comes from.
Anyway, we are getting way off topic. Okay, sorry. All right. So we're going to move on into a few years ago. Let's see, you had the idea to change course professionally. You were spending 6 days a week at the gym while your kids were in school. So you really ramped up. Then you got back into that place where it was kind of like, so wait, this is it? Because it sounds kind of weird, but when you're doing the same thing day in, day out for as long as you were, it kind of becomes complacent, even though you're really probably working your ass off in the gym.
I got to a point where I was like, oh,
Is this
this
it?
is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. I'm
I've done
going to be a
everything.
stay-at-home wife and go to the gym and do some photography on the side a little bit and drive these kids all over. And my girls were 15 at the time, 14, 15,
Yeah.
freshmen. And I thought, they're in school all day. They're going to be out of high school in the next few years. My son is, when I went back to school, late 6, 7 years old almost. And I thought, I had this, like, so candidly, I finished college when I
Yeah.
was pregnant with my twins, but I bombed out. I was so
Oh,
sick.
okay.
And my last semester was just,
yeah.
and my grades were not what I knew I was capable of. And I toyed with the idea of going back to school in 2011. And then I had thyroid cancer. And I was like, it's just not the time. It's
Yeah.
just not the time. And my babies were little and I just stayed home. And then they were older. We're done having babies. I'm going to the gym. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I need to prove to myself that I should just check that box. Let's just check the box.
Yeah. So initially it became about you finishing or getting the degree.
Doing my
and
bachelor's.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about the impact and the influence that strength training had on your desire to push yourself that direction to go back to school. If you had not started with the weight training, do you think you would have gone back?
Nope.
See, that's so interesting. It's like, it's the little wins.
It's the layering of the confidence, right? And Brett and I were just talking about this because, he's in sales and everything is momentum. When you're doing well and then you have a momentum to go into the next thing. And there's just this like waves of momentum. If you think of like ocean waves coming in, I think it's the same, right? That little bit of confidence from losing weight rolls into, I have a little bit of confidence to lift weight.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have these little bit of confidence from strength training and getting stronger in my most strong self at 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember my 40th birthday going, I'm in the best shape of my life at 40. And that was my goal for my 40th birthday.
Yeah.
I don't care what the scale says. I just want to be in the best physical shape of my life at 40.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, if I have all these little successes that I've built, I should be successful at that thing I left back there in 2007.
Yeah.
I should just go back and finish that
Mm-hmm.
and prove that I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back to school and I just picked the same degree I'd already done. So a lot of my courses transferred, but I still had a solid 14 months of school.
Oh, okay.
And
you did well.
I got an A. And then I was like, wonder if I could do that again. And I got another A. I'm like, And so it's that layering
Mm-hmm.
of confidence that just kind of keeps that momentum going, keeps the waves coming in. And I think I got to a really good system. I had like a schedule, like the kids are in school, I can do schoolwork and then I can go to the gym and then come back, do a little bit of schoolwork before I have to get them. It just was doable and feasible and it fit into my schedule.
Yeah.
And I refused to go walk at my graduation because I was like, that was one of those, this is stupid. I always said, it's like being 20 years late to the prom. I'm not going to this graduation and walking the stage. Like, that's silly. But then I thought, at that point, I knew I was going to go to nursing school. And I thought, I'll wait and walk. I'm going to walk that graduation. I'm going to march across that stage.
Yeah.
But this one, I was like, this is stupid. I should have done this all those years ago. This is like being 20 years late to the prom. I'm not going back and walking the stage.
I would have. I'm just saying.
I bought the cap and gown and I did some pictures and I was like, there we go. We celebrated on our own. Check.
It's like Jordan when he graduated high school in 2020, bought the cap and gown, didn't walk anywhere.
Walk around
That's
the block.
what it reminds me of. Yeah, it's so stupid. Okay. Oh my gosh. So Brett actually, I wrote this down during our pre-interview that he really felt like it was your calling to go back to go to nursing school.
Yeah.
Like, what was that decision? Like, how soon after going back to get your degree did you decide, okay, I'm actually going to take this thing as far as I can take it?
Well, it's interesting because originally I said, I loved my job. I worked in moderate to severe special ed for about 5 years, and I worked in school nursing with an amazing school nurse. And I said, that was one of my favorite jobs. And he goes, do you really want to be a special ed teacher though? Like, what was about that job that you liked? And I said, well, we had kids with pervasive medical needs and they had all of these things and we were managing all of their care. And he goes, again, it's back to nursing. That's what you originally were going for.
Mm-hmm.
So finish the degree you started. And I remember being maybe my third class in, and I looked at him and I said, I think I should go back and do nursing. And he goes, I knew this was coming. I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And candidly, my grades weren't great before I went back to school. So I had some damage to repair on my transcripts and some GPA improvements. I needed that 4.0 in my undergrad to offset
Yeah.
my earlier college experiences. So I hustled because I was like, I'm not going to get into nursing school in California if I don't repair some of this.
Yeah.
And I retook my science courses because there's recency requirements for some of those things. And I had to take entrance exams and I studied my tail off for those. And then I got into one private school in Reno and then I had others pending. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see where this takes us. And then my top choice I ended up getting in. And I was like, oh my gosh, how is this real? And then I just finished my first semester and I got my grades and I have all A's. I have one A minus that kind of threw my GPA. But my husband's like, this is your calling. Like
Wow.
it clicks for you because it's what
Mm-hmm.
you're meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So just
And that's how you know
and just do your best.
when something comes that I don't want to say easily because I know how hard you work, but when it comes naturally, I guess is the
Yeah.
word. I'm so happy for you that you got to go to college in nursing school here because most of the nurses I know had to go to Reno.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In California, it's probably the hardest.
Yeah.
And fortunately, like I'm in a private school, they take a really holistic approach. So the GPA requirements maybe aren't as strenuous, but they also interview you and see, do you have a passion?
Oh.
How are you going to take this profession? How are you going to run with it?
Yeah.
And I'm not a traditional student, right? I'm older. I'm a mom. I tick some of those boxes.
I wonder if that helped your case to.
It for sure helped me in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are life experiences
Yes.
that can't be duplicated in education.
No. And those life experiences, as you said in the pre-interview, actually helped you with your education to understand like the common sense of these things.
Yeah.
Because you'd experienced so many of them.
Yeah. And I don't like the goal setting or expectation setting in school. I don't expect a 4.0 in nursing school. It's already shot. We already got that A minus. I am more than happy to ride the middle of the pack and just finish. I always tell my nursing instructors and my peers in my cohort, I just want to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be good in the hospital with my patients. I want to have good skills. I want to be knowledgeable. I don't care if I finish with a 4.0 or 3.0. I just want to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to kind of reel in those expectations from the undergrad and set, just like with the gym, there's smart, realistic goals.
Yes.
And kind of let those self-imposed expectations of myself and judgments kind of go.
Yeah, but it's so interesting how God works that way. Like just literally like the path, one thing led to the next, and you got all the tools you needed to deliver you where you're at now.
Yeah.
Which, it's kind of lead into this next thing. I wrote something out when I was writing this outline. It's such an irony that as we enter our 40s, particularly women, we have more life experience, we have more wisdom with age, but it's also when we tell ourselves we're too old, our body is too old. So many of us are the best versions of ourselves from a mental and emotional perspective, but it also happens to be when most people this age are slowing down and they're settling in. And it's when we start to, like I said, let ourselves go. With that said, what has been your experience with this dichotomy, and how have I know you told me a story recently, but how have your peers responded to you going against the grain? Because it sounds like pretty well that you really haven't had much negative.
Yeah, no, and I have a small circle.
Yeah.
My circle's real small. So probably my biggest cheerleader has been my closest girlfriend, and she actually threw me a surprise graduation party when I refused to go graduate and walk the stage. And it's actually inspired her to go back to school, and she's doing amazing. And So there's no hate like on that inner circle. And
Yeah.
if there's hate outside of that, I'm oblivious to it and
Yeah.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
be oblivious to it. I don't
Yes.
care.
Yeah.
Um, I probably the biggest criticism is for
For
myself.
yourself. Yeah.
I remember the day one of walking into my nursing cohort and you survey the room and who's who and who did I interview with. And I kind of have that person as my buddy. And I looked around and I went, oh, I might be the oldest one here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's maybe 3 or 4 other women in their 40s, and I'm gonna say 40s as in they're 40. And I'm 43 now,
Yeah.
and so I go, "Huh, okay." So you kinda size everyone up. I think nursing cohorts in general do that because you had to compete so hard to get in. You're trying to size everyone up. And I thought, "Oh." So it's been like this running joke of me going, "Oh, well, I'm the old one," or "I'm this." It's almost like this self-deprecating
Yeah.
thing
Yes.
to deflect that attention. But what's fascinating is they all kind of look to me a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, or
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, "Oh," or you learn something like
Mm-hmm.
this medication has this side effect. I'm like, "Oh, I don't ever have to study that. I had that."
Mm.
And now it's in my brain. I always know it. I have that lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So while they have to maybe study hard on something, I already had it.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
lived experiences are valuable.
So
They're in their
valuable.
20s or 30s, and maybe they've never had to take care of a dying parent, or maybe they've never had to take care of a dying grandparent, or maybe they've not had disease yet or
Yeah.
had children yet. And so
Yeah.
those lived experiences, I can kind of go, well,
It's like a little piece of curriculum on all on its own. It's a little
it's
class on its own life. Yeah.
it's like a golf handicap that I have, right? Like
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
go, "Oh, well, I already have these things." So while my age may be people raise an eyebrow, "Why is she here?" Or "Why is she doing this now?" In general, I have found that most people go, "No,
No,
it makes sense. Your kids are
yeah.
older and all of these things." And I'm my own judge.
Yeah, I would think it actually you'd get a lot of respect for it because it is such a courageous thing to do to go start over,
Mhm.
basically. And just a side note on what you're talking about lived experience, it's made me because I did not do I mean, I graduated did finance school, but I wasn't an overachiever by any means. Part of that's because I didn't apply myself. Part of it is just I'm a slow learner. But I always think now if I were to go back and take a history class, I'd be so interested now because I've lived in the world,
Mhm.
and I'd be like, I want to go back and take like U.S. history just because I like my kids will talk about it because they've obviously taken it. I'm sure your girls,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh really? And because I don't remember, I probably slept in that class.
I also think like living this and starting over in my 40s, it makes me acutely aware of how little we understand ourselves when we're younger.
Oh,
And it's changed my parenting a little bit. I
mm-hmm.
don't think it's realistic for me to expect my 18-year-olds when they graduate to know what they want to do.
No,
I
no, it
think
is
that's
not.
foolish. And so I always make that joke like, oh, well, I'm 40 and I still just figured out what I want to be
Mhm,
when I grow up.
mhm.
You know?
That's the hardest thing I think is there's no way to know. Maybe you have a general direction, an idea. You
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to get into medical of some kind.
Yep.
So you have a general direction, but the idea that they should have it all figured out is crazy. And then we're putting all this money towards college, and it's like they may or may not use that degree.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I think back and go, would I ever go back and regret the time I spent raising my kids and having my business? Would I, if I could go back and do this, I always say to my husband, like, imagine how good I would have done if I had applied myself this hard in my 20s.
I
And he goes,
know.
no,
Yeah.
you wouldn't trade those years of raising your kids or the life experience. You would not have been as successful and you wouldn't have been as settled. And the kids would have had the parenting that you gave them.
Yeah.
Like things work out the way they're supposed to. And while I wouldn't really wish to be taking out student loans in my 40s, I am, and it's fine. And
Mm. Yeah,
yeah, I
I
just feel foolish. Sometimes that's my biggest, like, I judge myself like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm taking out student loans in my 40s. This is so silly. I already paid off my student loans from before. It just feels
40 is so
silly.
young though. I mean, in the grand scheme, 40 is like just the halfway point. Like there's so much life still left. I mean,
I agree.
I don't know.
Do you remember, like, looking back when you were a kid at people in their 40s. And
Yeah.
besides our perception that that seemed old, I feel like previous generations treated 40 like it was older
Mm-hmm.
than our generation
Mm-hmm.
treats 40.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. We're definitely like 40 is the new whatever they say. 40 is the new 20 and like 70 is the new 50, whatever. It I think the idea that we need to pack it in at 40 and be done is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm same as you. I'm ramping up. I'm starting a podcast. I mean, I'm starting now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like but I feel like all the things you just mentioned about being a stay-at-home mom, I'm so happy it happened that way because
Mm-hmm.
both of my kids have said, I don't know if your girls, Gage is probably not old enough yet, but they are so happy that I was a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a happy little accident, honestly,
Yep.
because I was disabled. I mean, I was meant to always work. I wanted to work. So the fact that it worked out that way and now I'm going back to work, same as
Mm-hmm.
you, it's like perfect timing.
It is perfect timing.
And you're in school, and so you're not really working in the field yet, and so you get to be home a lot still with Gage, and it's not like he's so it's just things tend to work out in an interesting way, and where we look at it and go, well, that's not really like standard, but maybe
But it's still
it's
okay.
the better. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like it's the more superior for my own life.
Yeah.
I'm happy I'm doing a podcast at 45 and not at 25 because what the frick would I know at 25 to talk about? I mean,
I agree.
I'm sure there's wonderful podcasters that are 25. I just wouldn't have been one of them.
I think I would be probably a better nurse in 45
Yeah.
than I would have been at 25.
Yeah.
I mean, I was working in that field in my 20s, and
Yeah.
I was good,
Yeah.
knowledgeably good
Yeah.
within my scope. But I think my understanding of people is better in my 40s.
Mm-hmm.
My more holistic approach to like patients
Yeah.
would be better
You
than
have
just
wisdom.
like doing the tasks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards to judgment, it's what's interesting to me because a lot of times when I prep for these episodes, I write them out word for word because I'm running through the episode in my mind, coming up with my idea for like my hook for what I want the episode to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lot of times it's not until after the pre-interview when I'm sitting at my laptop that I come up with it. And what I was thinking, what I wrote down was the weird thing about judgment is that we get judged for screwing up, but we also get judged for doing well. We kick others by judging them when they're down. It's definitely a thing, but we also pull others down when they make the choice to rise up and improve their lives, which I think is interesting. Misery obviously loves company, and that is part of it. If I'm broke or out of shape or unhappily single and someone in my peer group who is similar to me chooses to go back to school or go to the gym and get in shape, or they meet someone and fall in love suddenly, I feel awful about myself. So I get it. Watching someone who's in similar shoes to mine succeed, if I'm complacent, that may not be so fun. But for the person who chooses to start making those changes, that can also be difficult and awkward because you're the one changing, and sometimes, you're leaving people behind and you feel guilty. So my question is, was that ever an issue for you? Or let me ask it this way. Have you ever been the friend of a person who decided to take that leap forward and you had to confront your own feelings about it? Because I was trying to think about that for myself. Have I ever been that friend that had to go, I'm being left behind? And I think the only time I felt that way was when I got a divorce and all my friends were still married or they were getting married.
Yep.
And I felt like, wow, what a screw up I am.
I felt that
way.
for sure.
And it was hard to feel happy
Yep.
for them.
For sure.
But it sounds like nobody really tried to pull you down.
At least not to my face.
Yeah. I guess I hear about it so much from others. And so I think it makes me look at my own and go, is that existing? Or where could that be existing? And I just don't know about it.
I for sure remember being postpartum, that frumpy, jumpy, and grumpy phase, right? And I had friends that were done having babies, and here I am having a baby at 34.
Yeah.
And so they're in that phase of being their most fit self and going to the gym, and here I am, frumpy, dumpy, and grumpy.
Yeah.
Right? And I had to kind of go, ugh.
Yeah.
That sucks.
It's like good for you, but
we're going out and they're in those outfits and I'm in this. And that's not fun.
Yes.
That was a miserable, but I wouldn't begrudge them that, but it did make me have to confront myself and go, well, how do you change that?
Right.
What is it about that that's triggering you?
Yeah.
And some of this is outside your control. You just had a baby. You're you're still breastfeeding and that weight's not coming off or whatever it is, but there are elements within your control. And I think in my 20s, I probably would not have been, I probably would have been maybe not as kind
Right.
about it. But in my 30s and 40s, I go, that's not on them.
Right.
That's on me.
Right. And you have that self-awareness.
And the age and the wisdom. I think people who self-limit in their 40s, that's kind of on that's on them.
Yeah.
That's
And you shouldn't people should not feel bad for wanting to do better
yes.
or awkward.
Yes.
Because you will have some people that are not supportive just because it's making them confront their own.
Or it's against the grain.
Yeah,
People
it is.
don't do a lot in their 40s.
No.
And I was talking to Brett about this, and he said, well, I think it is an age where people are settling in, right? They're in their long-term career. They're saving for retirement. Their kids are getting into high school and beyond sometimes. I mean, we have friends from high school who are grandparents, right? Like,
Wow.
And then here we are starting a whole new career and starting a whole new fitness regimen or starting whatever, and he's writing books and he's ramping up.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a ramping up, and he's like, I think it's intriguing to people who have that misconceived notion that you are settling in your 40s.
You're packing it in, like,
flip the script.
Yeah.
You can be ramping it up.
Yeah.
I feel better in my 40s than I felt in my 20s.
I honestly being a young mom. I mean, I know you have an 8-year-old, but again, I consider 43 still young. It's like having a second life still to live. I mean, with 21, almost 22, and almost 16-year-old, it's like, I still have so much. Why wouldn't I ramp up? Why wouldn't I?
And I think that's
me.
where it hit me to go back to school is my girls were 15, and I thought, they're in high school.
Yeah.
I have 4 years, and then what? What do I do? I just go to the gym every day for the rest of my life?
Raise your one kid?
Yeah. I go to the gym every day for the rest of my life. I'm just going to be a muscle mommy forever. That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you're somebody that needs to have your mind.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And you did all that by learning and growing in the certifications. Like, you ran that as far as you could take it.
I think that's kind of my MO is to run things as far as I could take them.
MO. That's the word I was looking for. I'm like, what is it? MO. Sorry. That was the word earlier.
Yeah. And I think even like within nursing, I got accepted into one type of program or another type of program. And Brett says to me, I think you should take the master's degree program because your personality is going to go.
Yes.
You're going to go.
Yes. Good advice.
That enthusiasm for learning that my son has, I feel like.
That's so cool.
He comes by it honestly, for sure.
Oh, yeah. He's such an interesting kid. Okay, so as we start to wrap up, like I said, even though this isn't a motivational and inspirational podcast, I think it might be helpful to let listeners know that even if you are initially receiving judgment or jealousy, what I have found, and Jessica, you'll have to tell us if this has been the same for you, when you're consistent with something, and you've proven yourself, and like when I've earned my credibility, that judgment is oftentimes traded in for respect. From the people who criticize you on the front end. There are people who are just waiting for you to fail and to quit. And when you don't, you may be the person they reach out to for advice when or if they decide to make positive change in their own lives. I've heard this from others as well, time and time again. And, whether it's about marriage, weight loss, careers, people tend to watch and take note. And I don't know if this episode is going to come out before or after, but just want to say I had a gentleman on, I think his episode's coming out next week, who was in a gang, and spoiler alert, he was in the Crips, very high up. You know about this. I already told you, not this part, but when he reformed his life completely, and he has completely reformed his life, he had enemy gang members from like other gangs, like enemies who like they tried to kill each other for real, actually call him and ask for advice. Like at first it was like, because he's found Jesus and he's a pastor and all this, it was like, he was getting laughed at and made fun of. And now it's like, dude, how did you do that?
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. So that's very extreme. His whole story is an extreme example, but that is an example of sometimes when you stick to something and people are laughing at you or they're gossiping about you and whispering, just keep at it, because these are the same people who may come to you later on. How did you do that? Can you help me do that?
For sure. I agree. I agree with that completely. And I think maybe there are people that have fallen out of my life for different phases, and I see them re-enter. periodically
Yeah.
or try to go, hey, respect for this.
Right.
And then it just kind of, there's ebbs and flows. And I think when you do sort of try something different outside, whether it's your own judgment, your own criticism, and I've had to examine, like, why am I so critical? Like, who cares if I'm doing this at 40? This is silly. I was telling my friend and she goes, well, yeah, they used to just call it a midlife crisis. And I said, well, yeah, I guess it's better than a sports car or something,
Yeah.
but people will come back and they'll gravitate to something that's not what they're being told is expected, right?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think relationships or people who maybe side-eyed you or whether you knew it or not, they come around.
Yeah.
Out of a place of respect, just because you tried something different.
Yeah.
And you did it.
Yeah. And no one could take that away from you.
No.
Once and that's the thing that, it speaks for itself. When you've done the work, it speaks for itself. So in wrapping up, I just want to tell you how much I've enjoyed this, us catching up. Our lives have mirrored each other in so many interesting ways, I feel like, whether it's like you a little ahead of me or me a little ahead of you, we're always kind of doing something similar, and to connect and to catch up has been so awesome. Both of us, I feel like, are on this really fun upswing right now. So
yeah,
just know that we're cheering you on and excited for what's to come. So I will leave, with your permission, your Instagram handle, your fitness one. If people want to watch your progress or see where you've in the show notes. Is it public?
It will be.
Oh, I don't have to if you don't want me to.
Okay. I haven't done I broke my foot in December. So
I totally forgot about that.
I haven't posted a lot, but it's public.
Oh gosh. Well, they might just want to go take a peek.
You could see some of the before and afters and my failure highlight reel.
To be able to put the face in the videos with the voice and to just see where all this started would be interesting for them. So I'll leave that in the show notes for you guys to go take a look. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys back here next week. Bye. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, please give it a like and leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys think. Also, if you're looking for more information about how to be a guest on the show, please go to our website at humanityunlockedpodcast.com. We only record shows in person, and we are located in Sacramento, California. Oh, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you tap that button so you can get updated on weekly episodes as they go live. Is that it? I think that's it. See you guys next time.